Oh, welcome back to the Homestand Show. Let's talk some hockey, shall we, Mikey? Some
Some
hockey,
hockey.
yeah. Stanley Cup Final resumes tonight, of course. Florida in trouble right now, down 2-0, losing the plot a little bit last time out. To break it down a little bit further, let's now be joined by Sportsnet's JD Bunkis. JD, mate, it's been a while, but welcome to the show.
Boys, thank you for having me. And have you guys ever talked to anybody from like the Rhode Island area, that part of the states? Connecticut region, where they actually do say it, hacky.
Hacky? Oh, I know. Exactly. It's a weird pronunciation. And this is
But
an Englishman saying that.
no, but
So,
it's the best. Like whenever they say it, I go, this is our game. This is our thing when they do it that well. Hacky just sounds good when they're like, we're playing some ice hockey. I love it. I absolutely adore
it's
pronunciation.
a different sport entirely, isn't it, down there, it
Mhm.
seems. All right, so the Panthers down 2-0 to Vegas. Do you have any confidence at all that Matthew Tkachuk can stop being an idiot and become the brilliant yet belligerent player that he has been for much of the playoffs?
I gotta tell you though, I love it. Like when he got tossed the other night, I went, just leave him in. Why are the referees doing this? I know that they get blamed when things get out of control, and if somebody gets hurt, then the first thing people point to is, oh, the officials let the game get out of control. I love that he plays with an edge, and maybe I wouldn't have loved it if it wasn't for the absence of that kind of player from the game today. And the fact that he's had so much success with it. Like, at least he gets back in, he gets his team on the board. But I love that he tried to dirty it up, stay competitive, and let Vegas know that he wasn't going anywhere. I'm not sure if this one's going to be on necessarily like his shoulders to bring them back into the series. I think they need some goaltending again. And they're just facing a team that's better, deeper, and now has what they used to have, which is a red hot goaltender that seemingly came out of nowhere.
So, JD, for 90% of the people that put money on Matthew Tkachuk to win the Conn Smythe Trophy, is there any possibility that he turns this around and still has a shot at that trophy, or is it Jonathan Marchessault's to lose right now?
I would say that, like, I haven't looked at the betting odds as of this morning. I put a wager before the series started on Aiden Hill. So I'm just hoping that he gets more shutouts and somehow steals this thing from Marchessault. No, I think Marchessault is the runaway favorite right now. I'm not a big believer in the series doesn't start until a team loses on home ice thing in hockey. Like, you just look at the way that these Stanley Cup playoffs have gone. I think there's definitely a chance based on the way that Florida has performed throughout the series. Like, you come back against the Boston Bruins when you're down 3-1, a team that, even though they were beat up and wasn't exactly who they were in the regular season, everyone basically called one of the best teams that has been assembled, maybe the best team that's ever been assembled in the Stanley Cup, in the salary cap era, that you've still got a shot against the Vegas Golden Knights down 0-2. The problem, as I see it for Florida, is they're playing a group that has been on deep playoff runs since their existence, which is annoying, which is just incredibly annoying for anybody here. But they're a seasoned group. They're led by guys like Mark Stone, who's played now in almost 100 playoff games. They've got deep lines, 4 deep lines with Vegas. They've got great defensive pairings. Like, they know what it's going to take in order for them to win and close out some of these games. And for Florida, it's a team that's largely inexperienced, a team that was riding a heater. And then right as they were in the middle of the hottest streak they could possibly put together and their goaltender looked unbeatable, the NHL sat them down for 11 days. And now I just feel like all that time, maybe let it sink in who they actually are. They lost a little bit of their momentum. Their goaltender hasn't looked the same. I just, like, if you're asking me the Tkachuk question, and I'm always the most long-winded guy ever, yeah, to me, the formula for Florida to get back into the series is Tkachuk completely takes over these games, and their goaltender, Sergei Bobrovsky, finds himself again. If they don't get those two things, then there's not even a chance in hell. There's nowhere where they can start. They're not going to ride Brandon Montour to a Stanley Cup championship. They're two biggest and most prominent players.
But those things could happen quite conceivably, right? They've been doing it throughout the entire playoffs, like you mentioned. We keep hearing about them having no pressure. We don't feel it. We're enjoying ourselves. Now, I'm not quite sure I believe that right now. There's got to be some pressure in that room at being down 2-0. I understand that. But, I mean, you dismissed this team at your peril, right?
Yeah. I'm not writing off Florida. I just think it's really tough for me anyways, to see them to get back into the series the way that they've played so far, and that they look discombobulated at times, man. Their penalty kill was one of the worst in the NHL this season. And if you guys remember when we were already celebrating the Leafs beating Florida before the series started, that was one of the major talking points was, look, the Bruins have completely lit it up against these guys on the power play, and they got a little fortuitous that they were able to come back and beat them. And for a little while, that normalized to a degree. But what have we seen so far in this series? The Panthers try to play with an edge, and they're led by their leader, Matthew Tkachuk, who exemplifies that through and through. They end up taking a dumb penalty, and then a team like Vegas is capitalizing on it. They've got skilled players like Marchessault is going to probably win the Conn Smythe because of his ability on the power play, because he's able to score there. Like, they've got Jack Eichel, who is not a very strong two-way player, who you're letting set up in your zone against a pretty beleaguered unit. So I think it's hard, James, for me to see how Bobrovsky turns back into the guy that we saw during the playoffs when it was a hot streak, that Florida is able to continue to find goals and keep their edge as a team the way that the officials are calling the series so far, and that they're just going to be able to win now 4 games out of 5 against, a Golden Knights team that knows how to win, is extremely well-structured, well-coached, disciplined, and full of guys who have been here before. I actually think that it's now more improbable than the Boston 3-1. Like, honestly, it's really getting into that territory for me. Also, you can use this clip when they come back and win a Stanley Cup. I think I may have just helped them more than anyone has yet.
I think you mentioned Jack Eichel there, and I think back to, obviously, to the hit that occurred between him and Matthew Tkachuk. Jack Eichel coming back, for me personally, earned a ton of respect out of him. But I think that's been the narrative for Jack Eichel this playoffs, is that he is earning back that respect. Because if you remember, like, him coming through, like, he was the guy alongside, obviously, Auston Matthews coming through his draft year. If Vegas goes on to win it, Jack Eichel's obviously playing a prominent role for this team as their number 1 center. What does this mean for Jack Eichel's legacy?
It's massive. First of all, like, whenever you leave in acrimonious terms with your last place of business and you go and you have an abundance of success, that only adds to the success. Like, I think that's one of the most relatable things is it's not like Jack Eichel was doubted in the sense of Sabres him off and they always thought he was a bum. They really backed him. But when he left and they started to show a little bit of momentum, it was pretty clear they went, this guy's going to miss out on a beautiful and bright future in Buffalo, and he was loved, and now he's a heel here. He gets to stick it to everybody that ever questioned his choice. You win a Stanley Cup, and that's all gone. The Jack Eichel left Buffalo story becomes Jack Eichel, the hero who left Buffalo. Tough one for the Sabres, though, because they also had this with Ryan O'Reilly, who, when he was in Buffalo, said that, I think his quote was something along the lines of, I'm falling out of love with the game of hockey because of Buffalo. And then he goes and wins a Stanley Cup as a Conn Smythe champion in St. Louis. So to have this happen in 4 years where 2 of your most prominent players ask out, go to a different franchise, and stick it to you, like, the Jack Eichel legacy part is cool. Beating up on Buffalo is no longer like it. This isn't guys who left Red Wings Stanley Cup teams from the 90s and early 2000s, right? These aren't guys leaving. Remember how you would always root for New England Patriots players when they would leave and they would cut their guys too early, like Richard Seymour? You would say, I hope he does well somewhere else. This is now getting to the point where it's so ugly for Sabres fans that I'm saying, don't let another guy do this to them. Let's be the brunt of a joke, even if it's Leaf fans.
I'm going to say you're not helping the Leaf Nation's neurosis right now, JD. You're really not. You know, I mean, you mentioned Mikey Matthews and the Eichel rivalry, and at this point, what rivalry? You know, Eichel's about to lift a Stanley Cup.
Oh, come on, come on.
What?
You put Matthews on Vegas.
Perhaps. I don't know. I tell you what, if Matthews gets nailed like Eichel was by Tkachuk, I'm not sure Matthews gets back for the 3rd period, to be honest with you, but maybe I'm going a little bit too far there.
See, this is where I know you're a true Leaf fan, James. This is where it's like you're actually dyed in the wool because you've seen enough of this painful experience that you're done with the whole, oh, well, if Auston Matthews had an even better situation, it's
Right.
like, no, screw that. He hasn't won anything. Jack Eichel is now winning a bunch of hockey games. I'm not playing, what is it, the transient property with Auston Matthews? Yeah, he's a good player, but no, I credit the guys who have actually done it, not the guys who could do it if only for these following factors. Yeah, Jack Eichel right now, I don't think there's a real rivalry between the two players. I think Matthews individually has separated himself from Jack Eichel, but here's what I can tell you is if those guys show up to Team USA camp and one guy has a Stanley Cup ring and the other one does not have a Stanley Cup ring, I know which one of those two that I'm actually going to have a little bit more respect for.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Should we play some Leaf a little bit of Leaf game here? Some Leaf fun? Why not? You know, I mean, listen,
I like
it's
games.
pretty quiet in the whole Leaf world right now. A lot of our audience are obviously long-suffering Leaf fans, so I've got some rapid fire things here. Okay, all right,
Yeah.
JD, Mikey, you can jump in here as well. Okay, all right, okay, JD, who's going to be a Leaf longer, Auston Matthews or Brendan Shanahan?
Oh, I like that one. That's a good one because we know Shanahan's going to be here next year. Do we know Matthews is yet?
Yeah,
Probably.
probably is.
I'll
But
I'll say that it's going to be Matthews, but I think there's a scenario where those two guys' departure, if it does happen, are basically going to happen like bang bang. Auston Matthews says he wants out and he wants a deal. Brendan Shanahan's probably the guy that cooks it up. It's really hard for me to see the MLSE board look at Brendan Shanahan and go, so the best guy that we've had since there were 6 hockey teams just didn't want to play in the quote unquote mecca of hockey. No, we don't put any of this on you. You don't bear any responsibility. I do think Matthews is going to be here. The thing is, it's going to get weird, man, because he wants a lot of money. He doesn't want long-term, and he wants to play with certain guys. He has just taken player empowerment in hockey to a completely different level. And I do feel as though there are some fans that are now starting to turn on that, where they want to see him have a little bit of a give back to Toronto, show that he really does care about wearing the maple leaf. I know that we get overly sentimental with sports. Like, look at all the PGA golf fans right now, how their last 48 hours in terms of trying to be sentimental about sports and then realizing it's like, it's just about money. It's always just been about money.
it was,
But
yeah, 100%.
it does come to players. Like when it comes to players like Matthews, you want to see that, hey, you understand that guys before you in the salary cap era have taken a little bit of a haircut in order to win. Guys have committed long-term to places they really care about. And when you haven't won, you might want to show people that you're willing to do a little bit more in order to get that done. So I do think Matthews is going to be here. I think he hopefully outlives Shanahan in terms of his tenure as a Maple Leaf. But yeah, I like how this is rapid fire. I've taken like 45
I was going to say, thanks, JD, for that. You know, this isn't radio. You know, these are hard outs we have here, you know.
Phil? Yeah, here. I'll say Matthews. Matthews is here longer. Final answer.
All right, here's a rapid fire very, very quickly. Okay, what's better, a $12 million Mitch Marner or a $6 million rugged defenseman and a $6 million rugged net presence type winger?
The rugged
20
guys.
seconds.
The rugged guys. Give me the rugged guys. I'm tired of Mitch Marner in the playoffs.
I'm glad you said that, JD, because that's really upsetting Mikey, and we'll get to that later. I promise, Mikey. But JD, we're out of time, mate. Thanks so much for this. Really enjoyed it. We'll chat real soon.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.
That's JD Bunkis of Rogers Sportsnet.